What's up, guys? We are back with another Super 7 Ultimates review, taking a look at the missing ThunderCat, as it were. We are, of course, talking about CHEETARA today, which means we are going back to Wave 3. We've done this quite a bit. We've gone forward, we've gone backwards when it comes to waves, but CHEETARA is unique because she didn't ship with her wave. She's not a single release figure. She was supposed to come out in Wave 3, but they identified some issues and they went back to fix her. So we've got here a corrected version of CHEETARA. I would love to have seen what the actual bad one looked like in comparison, but we've got some images to use as reference for what they did fix. So I'm really excited to take a look at this one because if you're like me and you followed this line since it was at Mattel, you've been waiting on this because this completes, if you go back that far, this completes the core team of ThunderCats. So I'm really excited to just kind of round out that team. She, of course, comes in the standard Ultimate style box, and of course the same motif that we see for ThunderCats. So you got the sort of trapezoidal design. We've got the black slipcover with the foil embossed ThunderCats logo, and then you've got the ThunderCats logo on the back. Of course, slipcover, pop it off, and you've got the figure there in the window, and then on the back we've got some fantastic artwork of CHEETARA along with a biofur. So pretty standard stuff, but I'm still a big fan of this style packaging. Presentation always does it for me, but of course we got to do it. So let's pull her out and take a look. And here we go, out of the package, our Super 7 Ultimates CHEETARA. Again, a figure that has a bit of a bumpy history just in terms of being able to come out, seeing release, and as a result of that, I've been kind of worried about this one just because, well, they had to go back and redo parts, they had to get rid of old figures, the amount of effort it took to get her out. I was worried that maybe she wasn't going to be up to par. Thankfully, she does seem to be definitely improved from some of those original images we saw before they went back to make corrections. And I'll go so far as to say right now, there's only two, but she's the best female figure in the line for sure. She's definitely outshining Pumira for me, and I think she's going to mesh pretty well with your core, your original cast ThunderCats, because of course Pumira is still a little bit tall. So let's see what she can do, see how she moves around. She is similar to, but different from Pumira. I know that doesn't necessarily help, so let's just sort of run through it. She can look down really well. Can't really look up, and I'm sure you can see why. She does have an alternate head that has a little bit more range. We'll talk about that here in a bit. A little bit of tilt side to side, full rotation. You got arms that go out at the shoulders, more than 90. They rotate. Single jointed rotating elbow. You've got hinges, pretty good range really, and rotation at the wrist. She has a similar kind of torso cut to Pumira, but it's not exactly the same. Like Pumira's is basically just a cut across the chest. Hers looks like a diaphragm cut, but it's really not. It's still the same kind of thing, but there is a ball peg in there of some kind. There's a peg that just goes straight up in, but she doesn't really have any movement. She can bobble forward and side to side, so it's really just rotation. She doesn't, however, have anything at the waist. So that is your pivot point for the diaphragm. I will say that she can get a running pose just fine. Like, I've not had any issues in that regard, but I do hope to see, eventually, if we get more female figures that, or anybody that gets a diaphragm cut, that they get an actual, diaphragm cut, so we can actually bobble or, go full on like ball peg, single buck torso kind of thing. So that definitely has a little bit of room for improvement. Legs go out pretty far. Forward all the way. Backwards a lot more than you're going to need, I'm sure. You've got a thigh twist up there. We've got our single jointed knees. They do not go 90 though. And then you've got your rotation there. We've got hinges, rocker, all that good stuff. Hinge forward is pretty decent. Hinge back is really, really good though. And then rocker is unencumbered. So she's still very much exactly what you think she is. Like, I don't think there's any surprises here in terms of her articulation. Really, it just comes down to the fact that I do think she feels a little bit better when it comes to moving her around. And that could be a result of, the current factory that they're using, just like with Wave 3 proper and Wave 4, of course. I've kind of said a few times, after Wave 3 started, it really felt like things have changed in terms of quality. And to me, she very much feels like the current iteration of Ultimates. Like, they feel a little bit better. She moves a little more fluidly. And in general, I don't have any really worry about any of the joints or anything like that. She moves pretty well. There is definitely more possibility for range, even in the style of Ultimates. Like this torso, changing this torso up, I think would be a night and day difference for the line. But overall, she still moves really well. And I can get her into some pretty decent poses, frankly, without much effort. Now, aesthetically, I am very happy with her. There's still a little bit of room for improvement on this one, I think, but compared to a lot of other Ultimates, she seems to, again, be a little bit more, a little bit extra. And a lot of that comes down to the fact that there is, in the confines of Ultimates, a ton of paint on this figure. Like, there is a lot more than I expected there to be. We're talking full limbs being painted, boots being painted, spots all over the hair, shading on the chest, paint on the back, you know, all kinds of stuff. So she, of course, has a very, very asymmetrical look. So the colors change from different parts on her body, lighter on the chest, you know, darker on the arms, the spots, different shades of browns and hues of oranges and things like that. So I think for the most part, when it comes to just colors and overall paint, she's pretty nice. Like, you can see, you know, I've got painted joints even. So, you know, there's kind of chipping that's going to happen. But like the arms fully painted, the arm fully painted, the back is painted because it's two different colors, so it has to be painted there. And then, of course, the torso is kind of an overlay thing. That's also painted. You've got all these spots on her back, on the right shoulder here, you know, even into the joint. And so far, I've not had any issues with that. It's very, very clean. I haven't any kind of scraping or anything like that. So that does look nice. She's got her little bracelet here. She's even got paint on the hands that comes through. It's kind of hard to see because it's very, very close to the skin tone, but they painted it anyway. We've got her gauntlet here, which does have, and I guess I didn't pick up on this previously when it came to the original pictures or anything like that. She has a slot for the smaller non-extended staff because her staff was stored on her wrist. So you've got this one that you can put in there, and it's just held in there with tension, really, and it holds really well. It's kind of a nice, I guess it was a nice little Easter egg for me to notice without remembering, I suppose. We've got shading again on the chest, and it's subtle. I'm not sure it's going to come through really well, but she's got a little bit of shading that runs right around the outline of her, like her leotard, basically. So it's subtle, but it's there, and when you're up close, it definitely does make a difference. The ThunderCats logo is tampoed really nicely. I've had a few issues with that on some figures, but this one's really clean and crisp. Now, the big thing with this figure is definitely, you know, the change up between the first version that we aren't getting with the messed up hips and this version. And I think that they did a pretty solid job of fixing it based on some of those images that we had seen. She still seems to be a little wide to me. I'm not going to say that she's, you know, perfect, but I do notice a difference when it comes to the hip area. I do think that she is still a little bit on the wide side, though. It looks a little bit more evident on the back, but overall, like, it's really a minor issue to me at this point. I think she fits in pretty well, and especially if you go back and compare to some of the female Filmation Motu figures that Super7 did, those were kind of rough when it came to the hip areas. So I think CHEETARA is definitely leaning towards the better side of things. I do think there's still a little bit room for improvement, and I'm thinking that some of this comes from the fact that this is an overlay. So this is on top of the actual buck itself. So it makes her look, you know, a little bit more, I don't know, almost frumpy, but that's not exactly the word I want to use, but I guess I just used it. So she's pretty good. I'm overall very happy with her presentation and the way she looks, but I do think she's still a little bit wide around the waist, but it's definitely a night and day difference if you go back and look at those older images of what that figure that we were possibly going to get actually ended up being. And then we have our head up here, which I think came out pretty decently. You know, it's never going to match those hand-painted prototype images that we see, and I'm kind of glad they don't do those anymore because I think it set unrealistic expectations. But I think this head sculpt looks pretty good. It doesn't really have much of an expression, which is good for your base head, but they all kind of look like this, so I kind of wish one of them had something else. But the orange around the eyes is really clean. If that's one thing to mention, it's that all the paint on this figure so far has been very clean. Not really had any issues with splotchiness or any kind of mess ups or any of that kind of stuff, and especially on the paint on the face, because there's actually a lot here. You've got paint on the lips, you've got paint for the eyes, you've got like the eyelashes, you've got the little stripes that come down through the eyes. There's a bunch of different colors up here: reds, whites, grays, orange. That's whatever the color is for the lips, because it's not exactly red, but it's not pink either. So we've got that, and it's very clean, very crisp, and I think it looks pretty good. I'm pretty happy overall with the head sculpt and the paint job here. The hair If there's, I will say I wish there was a little bit of shading on the hair. She's super, super like highlighter yellow, which I suppose does work. But I wish there was a little bit of shading just to bring it out. But she does have all of those spots, which does break up the sculpt quite a bit and just brings it out a little bit more also. And I like the sort of windswept look that it's got going. It's not the same as an actual running windswept hair, but it's got a little bit of life to it, a little bit of character. So I think she does look pretty good. And if anything, she is definitely improved over that original figure that we were getting, and I'm glad Super7 went back and corrected that, because I think I can speak for everybody when I say that those hips definitely were a problem, and they have certainly improved this figure to the point where she, looks a lot more presentable, and I think can certainly pose a lot better as a result. Now, as far as some size comparisons go, we've got to talk about the other ThunderCats, of course, and I think for the most part, CHEETARA is pretty decently sized. So she's slimmer than, of course, all the males, but she's also shorter than Tigra and Lion-O specifically, and that is definitely correct in terms of what their heights are supposed to be. So Lion-O and Tigra are roughly around the same, and then they're both taller than CHEETARA. Now let's move Lion-O aside, and here is Panthro, and you can see that he's a little bit taller, but of course he's a lot bulkier, and that makes a lot of sense in terms of, well, just him being Panthro. And then let's do the biggest offender when it comes to sizing issues. So here is Pumaira, and you can see, I mean, she is still, this is definitely the big indicator to me that she is definitely tall. I mean, of course she was tall compared to Lion-O too, but she is way too tall compared to CHEETARA. So that's still a problem. She does need to be a little bit shorter, but overall, I think CHEETARA in particular, as far as she goes, she's going to fit in pretty well with the ThunderCats because she does seem to be scaled really nicely to the core team. And then let's do some non-Super7 stuff. So let's take Panthro aside, and here is a Marvel Legend. So we'll go with the new standard for regular characters, regular human male kind of characters. So here is Marvel Legends Vulcan. And then let's do a NECA Turtle. So there's Leo, and you can get an idea of what she looks like among other brands' products. And then let's do one more, something similar but different, because, if you're like me, you might want to put these two together. Just, why not? Here, we'll take Leo aside, and here is the Motu Classics She-Ra. Because I could see somebody doing that. And She-Ra is a little bit taller. I think this goes along with the fact that they specifically made CHEETARA shorter than Lion-O on purpose. So you can see that they are maybe not necessarily in scale, but they don't go together anyway, so it doesn't really matter. So there's an idea of what she looks like next to a female Motu Classic. So I'm pretty happy with sizing on this. Again, like I said, she's definitely slimmer than all of the male characters, and then she's shorter than the ones that she should be shorter than. So she looks, a little bit leaner next to Lion-O and Tigra. Now, as far as accessories goes, CHEETARA does have a pretty decent spread, and, of course, they upgraded her a little bit by giving her a third head sculpt also to kind of make up for, the weight, the added weight on this one. She does have a bunch of other stuff, though. To start with, we'll talk about hands, just to get those out of the way. So she comes with 3 extra sets. So you get a set of sort of like flat cupping hands that could be used as running hands or, her grasping something in her hand. We get a set of actual gripping hands. And then you get a set, all the ThunderCats come with them, basically. You get a set of like the clawed kind of hands, style posy hands, which I really like for her, especially when she's holding her staff one-handedly. So you've got 8 total hands. I'm really happy, that she does, of course, come with fists on her in the box. We get her staff, and, here's the little one, like I mentioned previously. So it just sort of sits in there, and you can kind of flick it across the room like that. And it's just done up in gold. It's just painted gold. But this is really nice. Like, I like the idea behind this. So if you, for some reason, wanted to have her without the staff in her hand, you've got the option of having it there. And it looks pretty good there. And it also stays really well. We've got her staff. Now, this does pose a problem for me in some ways. And we'll kind of get to why here in a minute. But it is overall pretty well done. It's tall. But it's really flexible too, and that's part of the issue. Like, it's not necessarily an issue right now, but it kind of will be soon enough. But she can hold it really well one-handed, two-handed, no issues there, and it looks good. It's got a nice luster, nice shine to it with all this gold metallic paint. She comes with the Treasures of Thundera, so we've got the flute, And we've got the mirror. So I'm happy to see some of this stuff creeping back in because we're still missing a few things. And we kind of missed an opportunity to get one of these with Tigra. If I remember, he didn't come with one. But we've got the mirror, and it's actually got, you know, a little like foil on it or whatever. And then you've got the ThunderCats logo. This is painted really nicely. The flute is a flute, but it does look good. So I'm happy with these. I don't personally use these a lot because I don't really know what to do with them, but I like to see this kind of stuff in the line, especially for folks who get crazy with, you know, actually world building their photography and things like that. We get one thing that I do not recall what this is. It's a communicator, but I don't really remember what it is. You get the closed one and the open one. I kind of wish that this was just one piece that could open instead of two. And then it's got a little string. I just don't remember what these are. They're every now and then it's gonna you know, skip my memory as to what some of this kind of esoteric stuff is. But we've got some ThunderCat doodads here, so you got those, and then we get the extra heads. So of course this is like the windswept kind of hair look, and it's basically the same head sculpt as the standard head, which is part of my issue with when I mentioned expressions earlier, because I kind of wish this is ideally the one you'd use when she's in a running pose because the hair is flowing backward. I kind of wish she looked a little bit more, I don't know, a little bit more determined, because all the ThunderCats come with like a battle head, and she doesn't really. I kind of wish that could have also taken that place by giving her maybe a little smirk or even like a little snarl going on. But it does look good. I mean, and it definitely fills its purpose really well because it does allow her to look up a little bit more, which helps when you've got her kind of twisting forward. And then of course the hair going backwards does help to sell the idea that she's actually in motion. And then we get the bonus head, which is again basically the exact same head as the regular head. So you've got two. This is the regular one, and this is the bonus one, and this one has glowing eyes. So of course this is like that summoning head when Lionel uses the Sword of Omens to call on the ThunderCats. And I like these. I do wish that we had consistency across the board with them, because Tigra doesn't have one, Pumaira doesn't have one, Linkso doesn't have one with glowing ears, for example. You know, so I don't think Bengali's going to have one either. So I'd love to be able to have all of this with all of them, but I am happy to see it again. I do like this. I'm a sucker for glow-in-the-dark stuff anyway, so there's that. And then we get this monster, and I don't know if this is actually meant to be like specifically from something or not, and if it is, it's absolutely just, you know, something I can't recall, but it's like this big fire effect, and it's obviously supposed to go on the end of her bow, of her staff, but this thing weighs probably as much as the figure itself. So it doesn't really work because the staff is so bendy, like I said, which works really well for getting it into CHEETARA's hands. But it doesn't exactly work well for this, and I just don't recall what this is supposed to be doing. It's a cool effect, though, and I'm sure I can make use of it somehow, but I don't know that I'm going to be able to make use of it in the way that they intend, or that I'm, you know, able to display it, really, because I'm concerned that over time this is going to destroy the staff, not to mention just make the whole figure fall over. So it's kind of cool, but it also seems a little bit impractical as well. Otherwise, though, I am very happy with her accessories. I mean, at the end of the day, getting this head with the staff is pretty much where I start and stop with my display, and I do like the idea of having that extra little mini staff that's in her gauntlet, because I like that. It's really cool. And then she of course does come with some treasures of Thundera to kind of pick up where we've left off with some of the other figures. So overall, I am pretty happy with CHEETARA. Like I said, she's not perfect, and I do have my gripes, but at the end of the day, I am ultimately having a lot of fun playing around with her, because, you know, again, I think that she turned out to be better than I expected, just because I was kind of worried after all of the issues we had heard about and the prolonged wait for her. I do think that she turned out a little bit better than I expected. I think she looks really good. She does move well, despite, you know, some of the limitations of this line. I do think she moves well, especially in the fact that I can get her in a nice running pose and not really have to worry about that. I was concerned about that also, but she succeeds at doing that. She also comes with a lot of accessories. You know, your mileage may vary on what you actually need out of this, but I like to see the variety when it comes to Ultimate stuff, especially when they get into some of these deep cuts. Even if I don't remember the deep cut stuff, I like to see that in there. The only real issue for me with accessories is that I wish one of the heads was a little bit different, and I'm still not exactly sure how I'm going to use that effect piece. It's a big one. So that's going to do it for this look at the Super 7 Ultimates CHEETARA. Let me know what you guys think. Feel free to like, comment, subscribe, and share, and until next time.